It's daybreak on Arise News, and it's time for the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. Let's, of course, deal with our sister publication this day. The headline, unlike Zamfara, court sacks Umahi. Igwe, 16 lawmakers, says votes belong to the party. Some riders here. PDP moves to take over, submits... they move to take over anyway. Then Ozokeme says judgment cannot stand appeal court scrutiny. That's what Ozokeme is saying. And then at the masthead, APC stakeholders mull soft landing for Buni. Abandode's fate uncertain. I'll leave it there for this day. Let's go to the next paper.
And for the Guardian newspaper this morning, similar headline, court sacks Umahi, deputy axes 16 lawmakers over defections and riders. Umahi sues for peace and vows to appeal decision, while the judgment contradictory to the constitution, says counsel. PDP names Igwe Udego as new Ebonyi governor, and deputy asks INEC to issue certificate of return to them. More headlines here. Lagos State First Lady Dr. Ibijoke Shawolu addressing women during a rally against rejection of gender bills by the National Assembly. This was yesterday, International Women's Day. That's the leading photo on the Guardian newspaper this morning.
The Punch newspaper. The crude oil price, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria warns of hyperinflation. Subsidy hits 400 naira, diesel at 625 naira. Aviation fuel hits 580 naira per litre. Air travelers stranded, they're going to pay more. International Women's Day, close gender gap between men and women in governance, says Minister. PDP submits Umahi's replacement to INEC. Sacked governor sits tight. APC to release zoning formula, suspend zonal Congress amid confusion.
All right, let's look at the Nation newspaper headline. APC soft landing for Buni as Sani Bello, governor of Niger State, consolidates at the masthead. International Women's Day, protest over rejected gender bills. That is on page 22. The APC soft landing is on page 4. And then just by the side of that International Women's Day, we have Adeleke Babayemi claim Osun PDP governorship ticket. Electoral Act amendment, court can't stop us, says Senate.
Okay, for the press preview, let's bring in Emmanuel Bello, who joins us now in our offsite studio. Emmanuel, good morning. Good to have you. Thanks for joining us. Let's take a look at this day newspaper, a very full front page this morning. Its headline, unlike Zamfara, court sacks Umahi. Igwe, 16 lawmakers, and says votes belong to party. Emmanuel Bello, what are your thoughts on this confusing situation?
I hope, Emmanuel, you could hear us.
Well,
looks like we're having a challenge with the audio there. When we get across to Emmanuel, we will continue with that paper review. Kenneth?
Yeah, we'll carry on. And the international papers here, it's the I paper. We will fight in the forests and on the streets. That's according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
And some of the other international papers also leading with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky echoing Churchill there when he was speaking to the House of Commons, saying we'll fight until the end in his historic address. More headlines on the Times newspaper. Ukraine to get NATO jets. Aircraft deal risks new confrontation. And meanwhile, Britain and US ban Russian oil. And Xi peace plea hints at split with Putin.
The Guardian here says, blow to Putin, Britain and US ban Russian oil. And President Volodymyr Zelensky gets a standing ovation in the UK's Parliament. He says, we will fight until the end at sea, in the air. We will continue fighting for our land. We will fight in the forests and in the fields, on the shores and in the streets. And of course, fleeing Ukrainians have been leaving the country. The United Nations says over 2 million of them, at least 1 million in Poland. And the bombardment hasn't stopped. Russia said it announced a ceasefire for yesterday, but someone keeps breaking that ceasefire. Earlier we heard that buses that were on their way to Mariupol turned around because shelling was just ahead and they couldn't get people out. In other parts of the country, some local areas close to Kiev, refugees are still trooping out. It's much more difficult for them now because the areas which they would have taken have been blown up now to stall the advance of the Russian forces. But we do hear that we've got Emmanuel.
Okay.
Now.
We've got Emmanuel now. And just before we bring in Emmanuel, just some breaking news coming in now. Joseph Ebunike, a Deputy Inspector General of the police in charge of the Force Criminal Investigation Department, FCID, is dead. Until his death, Ebunike was heading the Special Investigative Panel constituted by Usman Baba. The Inspector General of Police investigates the suspended Super Cop Abakari. Now, Emmanuel Bello, good morning. Before we lost you, I was talking about the front page of This Day and the front page of many of the national dailies, leading with that court judgment yesterday that sacks Ebonyi State Governor Umahi, and that was unlike what we saw in the Federal High Court in Zamfara State. What are your thoughts?
Yes, and this they captured it very beautifully well by adding the Zamfara scene on right there on the cover when you say unlike Zamfara. It takes you back to what happened in Zamfara and puts this Umahi's situation in perspective, in a context to say that, look, we have precedents in the past where the courts did not do the same thing. So the courts practically here contradicted itself, and that's why I think legal luminaries are already way on the matter and saying that this cannot stand scrutiny. The governor himself has become his own chief defender, saying that, look, I'm still in charge, and that there are bases in which, or there are already constitutional means of removing a governor. He say it's either he's dead or he's impeached or he resigned, and this case is not any of that. But then you have to look at what the courts are saying, that these votes normally belong to the party and not the individual. I think if the courts will have its way, one of the things is seek to deal with is the crisis of people just, a party, you get power through a party and then you defect and you leave the party. Politicians will tell you that, well, there are reasons why they leave the party that brought them to power. They will talk about divisions in those parties. They will talk about the fact that they are no longer, they don't feel welcome. The fact that they don't see a path to any form of electoral victory in the future in the party that originally brought them to power. So politicians always have a reason for saying we are defecting, we are moving from this party to the other. This judgment, if it was allowed to stand, would deal with those crises of people defecting, and but of already legal luminaries weighing on the matter and saying that that's not how you do business. You don't just move, you don't just sack a governor from a court. And this, of course, last year, or was it this year, Vice President was saying that a situation where the courts again and again determine what's happened in the political field is not always very healthy. He was trying to de-emphasize the role of courts in deciding, electoral victories and all that. But then, of course, I agree with people who have to always go to court. The PDP is happy with this judgment, already submitting names of replacement for Umahi. So it's a growing drama. We're going to watch it and see where it ends.
Emmanuel, while we wait for that drama and how it's going to pan out, the president's written to the House. He wants deletion of Section 84, subsection 12 in the Electoral Act. The Federal High Court had passed a judgment, but the president doesn't seem to want to obey the courts.
Yeah, of course, and that's isn't that part of the problem? Where courts are. Umahi says something Governor Umahi says something very interesting in those defense that he was trying to put up. He said, "Look, something can be wrong with the executive, something can be wrong with the legislative, but that the judiciary should be sacrosanct. totally agree. So, but there's a situation where, you know, court judgments, judgments come from the court and then they are not obeyed, or people don't even look at them, and or like Umahi himself was saying in his own case that these judgments were bought and all that. You know, it's confusing. But the first thing we need to do is actually look at those court judgments and really obey them. We discussed this story yesterday. The National Assembly is actually carrying a moral burden right now, because it actually gave the president its word that, look, we're going to just sign this, we're going to look at this clause, we're going to expunge it. And the president now asking the National Assembly to keep its words and expunge it. But that is of course clashing with some other voices, and even a court case that say no, you don't have the rights to do this. So this is also an interesting, huge story, and it's not surprising that it's still trending. This is the third day on that this story is still trending, and I think it's going to trend on until we see who backs out first of this.
Well, the National Assembly is saying that the court can stop them. Of course, separation of powers. Theirs is to make law. The courts is to interpret the laws that the legislature or NAS makes. But let's look at The Nation. The headline there says, APC's soft landing for Bunia Sani Bello consolidates. Well, there seems to be conflicting views here. I mean, we're listening to someone on talk about this APC conundrum, saying that Sani is Buni's deputy, so he's basically holding forth until Buni gets back. So I don't know what you make of this whole scenario, Emmanuel.
No, I think I'm watching. We're all watching and looking at the same thing from different perspectives. But what is very clear is Sani is taking real charge. The governor of Niger State taking charge, taking center stage in the whole situation, trying to give the party some kind of direction. In the This Day story, it says he was saying very clearly that, look, what matters now, and I think it's true. What matters for the party is how to get its convention off the ground. Those other contradictions are there. Remember that yesterday the national chairman, secretary of the party, had conflicting stories too, using the word conflicting here. He said he was, there was reports that he resigned. He came back to say no, he couldn't resign. And he's been saying some real tough things, like, look, he will have to hear from the president himself to know whether he's out of office or if Buni is out. And like what you said, the confusion over the positions that the papers are reporting that, like you said, conflicting. But what is so clear, and I don't think there's any conflict there really, is the fact that Sani has taken over. He's getting some serious backing, and like he said, for him, the biggest thing for him is how to stabilize the party, how to take it forward, and the days are ticking to the convention. He said everyone should worry about the convention beyond these other issues that are on ground. The position of Buni, what happens to him, what does he become? Even the national secretary, does he stay back? Is he playing the loyalty card, or is it a game up for him? Those issues are lingering. But the bigger issue, and I think the most important issue, is that Sani is taking control. He's trying to reposition the party. He's thinking of convention. He's moved forward ahead, and now that's what he's faced with. And he's urging everyone to worry about a bigger issue, which is the party's convention.
We'll see how that plays out.
All right, thank you so much, Manuel Bello. That's the press preview.